It started like any other afternoon. No warning, no time to prepare. I was in my studio, touching up the outline of a client's tattoo. A crown of thorns wrapping around a cross. She'd said it was her way of wearing her faith. For me, it was just another day's work. When she left, I cleaned the bench, poured a cup of coffee, and sat down. That's when it hit. A sudden weight in my chest. Not stabbing, just crushing. The mug slipped from my hand, shattering on the floor. I tried to stand, but my legs gave out. The world tilted. My breath vanished. The hum of the tattoo machine faded in my ears. Colors dulled, sound drained away, like water slipping down a drain. Flat on my back, my eyes locked on the ink that wrapped my arm. A Bible verse I thought told the world I belonged to Christ. But as the darkness swallowed me, a strange thought rose in my mind. What if this mark wasn't what I thought it was? I had no idea. I was about to die, and Jesus was about to tell me the dark truth no one had ever warned me about. I wasn't born into the tattoo world. I grew up in a small town where church steeples outnumbered stoplights. My mother was a choir singer, my father a construction worker, who kept his feelings locked behind a hard stare. Sunday mornings were about pressed shirts, hymnals, and shaking hands with the same people every week. But by 16, I was already drifting. I didn't hate God. I just didn't see what he had to do with my life. The first time I stepped into a tattoo shop, it felt like walking into a different universe. The smell of ink, the low buzz of the machines, the walls covered in art that didn't care about rules or permission. I was hooked. I got my first tattoo that year, a jagged design across my shoulder blade. My parents were furious. I never considered what those marks might also be saying in the unseen places, or how the stories we etch into our skin can bind us to moments, feelings, and identities we were never meant to carry forever. That realization, the one I never saw coming, wouldn't arrive until the day my heart stopped, and I met the very one I thought I was honoring. It was late afternoon when my heart betrayed me. I just finished tidying up the studio and sat on the couch with a lukewarm cup of coffee. The TV murmured in the background. Some home renovation show I wasn't really watching. Then it hit. A crushing weight settled in my chest, heavy and merciless. My fingers went numb. The mug slid from my grip, and coffee splattered across the floor. I tried to stand, but my knees buckled. My body felt foreign, disconnected. Each breath came shorter than the last. The sound of the TV grew distant, muffled, like I was underwater. Flat on my back, my eyes drifted to the inside of my forearm, a verse from Psalms I'd inked years ago. I'd always thought it marked me as his, but as the edges of my vision darkened, an unsettling thought surfaced. What if it meant something else? The ceiling above blurred, then dissolved into black. My last earthly thought wasn't about bills or tomorrow. It was about that mark on my skin, and whether it was telling the truth about who I really was. And then, nothing. Silence. Not the kind you hear, but the kind you feel. Deep, steady, absolute. When I opened my eyes, I wasn't in my body anymore. I was above it. There I was, sprawled on the couch, coffee pooling on the floor. My arm twisted at an awkward angle. The TV kept playing. Oblivious. It didn't scare me. It felt detached, like I was watching a scene in someone else's life. A gentle pull began, like a slow-moving current in a river. I drifted upward, through the ceiling, past the wooden beams and insulation, straight into the open sky. Below, the neighborhood spread out in sharp detail. Cars moved along the street. A man walked his dog. Somewhere, a lawnmower hummed. Life went on, untouched by my absence. Then the air around me began to hum. It wasn't sound as much as vibration, a low resonant note that seemed to sink into the very core of my being. Peace wrapped around me, warm and weightless. The world below blurred, like a photograph dissolving in water. Above me, the blue sky melted into deep velvet darkness, and from that darkness, a single point of light appeared. Small at first, like a star, but growing, drawing me toward it, or perhaps moving toward me. And with every inch it drew closer, I felt something rising in me, something I would later recognize as pure, unshakable love. The light expanded until it filled my entire vision, not blinding, but alive, as if it carried a heartbeat. Warmth poured from it, soaking into me deeper than skin, deeper than thought. Then, it took form. A figure emerged from the radiance. A man, yet more than a man. His robe shimmered like woven starlight. His face, I can't describe it in earthly words. It was like looking at the sun, and somehow seeing every moment of safety, joy, and belonging I'd ever known. But his eyes, they weren't a color I could name. They were a living river. Joy and sorrow, strength and tenderness all at once. And when they met mine, I knew Jesus. I didn't hear his voice with my ears. It came as thought and feeling intertwined. A sound warmer than anything I'd ever known. My child, I have been waiting for you. The love in his presence was overwhelming. It wasn't the polite kind of love people pretend to have for each other. This was fierce, consuming, and utterly personal. I felt seen in a way I never had before. Every failure, every hidden shame laid bare, and yet I was embraced without hesitation. Then he looked at me, really looked, and his gaze dropped to my arms. I followed his eyes. My spiritual body was unmarked, clean, whole. Every tattoo I had carried in life, gone. Confusion swirled in me. He smiled, knowing my question before I spoke it. The marks you wore on earth are not the story of who you truly are. And with that, the darkness around us shifted, and I was no longer standing in his light alone. We were in a tattoo shop, one I'd never seen before but instantly recognized. The sterile scent, the buzzing of a machine, the glint of stainless steel. In the chair sat a young man, maybe 19. His biceps stretched taut as an artist carved a snarling wolf into his skin. But Jesus let me see what my eyes alone never could. From the tattoo's lines, a thin dark thread began to unravel, smoky, like spider silk, and it reached inward, tethering itself to the young man's spirit. "This is not a demon," Jesus said, his voice tinged with sorrow. "It is an anchor. His heart is filled with anger toward his father, and this mark will give his anger a home. It will whisper to him when he is weak, shaping his choices for years." The scene shifted. A woman in her 40s sat in a bright, airy studio, tears brimming as she had her mother's name etched into her wrist alongside dates of birth and death. The tattoo was delicate, beautiful, but again, I saw the thread, this time, lighter but no less binding. "This is love, chained to grief," Jesus explained. "It ties her heart to a grave she was never meant to live beside. Every glance at it reopens a wound I long to heal." Another shift. A man stood shirtless, grinning as an artist inked an ornate cross across his back. He told the room how proud he was to wear his faith. But in the spirit, I saw the mark twist into something else, a tether to pride, to comparison, to the subtle belief that this visible symbol made him holier than others. Jesus turned to me. "Do you see? These are not evil in themselves, but every mark tells a story, and some stories chain my children to wounds, to pride, to identities I never gave them." I stared at those threads, barely visible, yet unbreakable without his touch, and for the first time, I wondered what my own marks looked like in his light. Without a word, the scene shifted again, and this time, I saw myself, 18 years old, sitting in a cramped backroom studio. The smell of ink and cigarettes hung in the air. I watched my younger self laugh with the artist as he pressed the needle to my skin, carving out my first tattoo, a jagged design across my shoulder blade. Jesus let me feel the heartbeat of that moment, and it wasn't art, it was defiance. I could taste the rebellion I'd carried in that chair, the thrill of going against my parents, the quiet vow that no one would ever control me again. The scene jumped forward. I was 24, standing in a shop after closing hours, a friend inking a tribute to a band I idolized. On the surface, it seemed harmless, a nod to music I loved, but Jesus showed me the pride hiding underneath, the subtle way I'd tied part of my identity to fame, to the approval of strangers, to a world that celebrated itself more than him. Then, the one that stopped me cold, the name of my daughter, inked in careful script over my heart. I had chosen it out of pure love, believing it honored her. But Jesus' voice was gentle as he spoke. You love her deeply. That is good, but your heart belongs to me first. By placing her name over this space, you've unknowingly made her the guardian of it, and she was never meant to carry that weight. I looked down at my arms, my chest. In the light of his presence, there were no tattoos, no marks, yet I could still feel the threads they had woven into my life, and how subtly they had steered me. It is not about the ink, Jesus said. It is about the anchor. Some marks keep my children tied to the shore when I have called them to sail. The air around us changed. Darkness fell away, replaced by a vast, open expanse, a battlefield unlike anything I'd seen. On one side stood ranks of warriors clothed in light, their armor gleaming. On the other, shadows, shapes moving in silence, eyes like burning coals, and between them, people, ordinary men and women. Some stood tall, holding invisible banners above their heads. Others crouched, weighed down, their banners dragging in the dirt. At first, I didn't understand. Then I saw it. The banners were their tattoos, not the art itself, but the spiritual story behind them. Some carried the colors of grief, others the symbols of rage, pride, rebellion, or self-worship. The enemy cannot see the seal I place on the heart, Jesus said, his voice steady. But he can see the banners my children raise on their skin, and he will use them. I watched as shadowed figures whispered to those banners, feeding the grief, stoking the rage, flattering the pride. Each whisper sent weight into the person's shoulders, slowing their steps. But when the mark is mine, on the heart, Jesus continued, no enemy can touch it. That is the mark that cannot fade, cannot be stolen, cannot be turned into a weapon against them. The battlefield dissolved, but the weight of what I'd seen stayed heavy in my chest. I finally understood. The marks we choose in life echo far louder in eternity than we ever imagine. The battlefield faded, and once again I stood in the radiance of his presence. Every instinct in me wanted to stay there forever. Here there was no weight, no fear, no shame, just him. But Jesus stepped closer, his eyes fixed on mine. You cannot stay, he said gently. The words pierced me. Please, don't send me back, I whispered. I don't want to leave you. You must, he said. Because my children are walking with chains they cannot see. They think they are adorning the temple, but they are locking its doors from the inside. His hand rested on my shoulder, and his voice deepened. Tell them not with judgment, but with the love you have felt here. This is not about shame. It is about freedom. I do not condemn those with marks on their bodies. I came to set them free from the stories that bind them. He let the words settle, then added, tell them to bring me their anger, their grief, their pride, and I will write a new story on their hearts. Then, almost as an afterthought, he said something that broke me completely. Your wife and your daughter need you. Your story with them is not finished. Go, and be a father who points her to her true father. The moment he spoke the word go, the peace shattered. The gentle current that had carried me turned into a rushing waterfall, dragging me backward. I reached for the light, for him, but it was gone. The darkness swallowed me, and then came the pain. Every nerve in my body screamed at once. My chest felt like it was being crushed from the inside out. I gasped, a ragged, burning breath that tore through my lungs. Voices erupted around me. We've got him. Pulse is back. A blinding white ceiling swam into view. Blue uniforms, masks, the smell of antiseptic and metal. You've been down for nearly 9 minutes, a paramedic said, his voice sharp with disbelief. No pulse, no breathing. By all accounts, you shouldn't be here. But I was, alive, and with a message I could never have imagined carrying. The hospital called it a miracle. They ran every test they could think of, expecting to find damage to my brain or heart. But there was nothing they could explain. Only a scar on my chest, where the paddles had brought me back. When I finally stood in front of a mirror, I looked at my tattoos differently. They were the same designs I'd worn for years, but now they weren't just art or memories. I saw the threads, the unseen ties to moments, emotions, and identities that Jesus had shown me. I didn't feel condemned, but I couldn't pretend I didn't know the truth anymore. I started sharing my story. At church, some people leaned in, eyes wide, wanting to hear every detail. Others shifted uncomfortably, quick to defend their own ink before I'd even finished speaking. Some called it too extreme, while others quietly admitted they'd always felt a heaviness about certain tattoos, but never understood why. I told them what Jesus told me. It's not about ink and needles, it's about the heart. It's about freedom. And every time I speak it, I feel the weight of his words again. They think they are adorning the temple, but they are locking its doors from the inside. If you're hearing this, I'm not asking you to remove your tattoo. I'm asking you to be honest with the one who knows every mark and the story behind it. Ask yourself, why did I get this? What was in my heart that day? Was it love, pride, pain, rebellion, grief? Bring it to Jesus. Say, Lord, here's the story I etched into my skin. I give it to you. Rewrite it on my heart. He's not after your skin. He's after your freedom. And the only mark that will last forever is the one he writes in his own blood. Don't carry chains you were never meant to wear. The temple is his. Let him open its doors.